Hi, my name's Christian Vidal and I'm from AppSense in the UK. I'm here today to take you through AppSense Application Manager and on performing some basic configurations with the product to get you up and running, whether you be a customer or a partner of ours. So what I'd like to run through today is importing a template into Application Manager. So the templates we provide with the download of Application Manager are really the base we like to start with in providing a secure environment. I'm then going to touch on trusted ownership checking and also using the rule sets in conjunction with trusted ownership checking to make sure that you give the users a secure environment and allow them to run the applications they're allowed to. Okay, so here I am in my environment. I'm running a 2008 Active Directory environment and I'm actually on my management server here. So you can see I've got my Application Manager console in front of me. I've also got the Management Center console up and running for my environment. You can see I've got a number of deployment groups here as well. Just to speed up this demonstration, I've also pre-installed some pieces of our software. So with regards to what we've got in my environment currently, I've got Environment Manager, an Application Manager, and the Communications Agent already pre-installed onto my desktop, which is a Windows 7 desktop. Okay, so to import a template, it's fairly straightforward. So in the console here, we've got a blank console. We have sort of nothing in here at all. There's nothing prohibited items for everyone. There's nothing inaccessible items apart from a couple of these folders. So what I'm going to do is go to the red button and select the Import Export option and tell it I wish to import an MSI. Okay, so within here I'm going to browse to where I've downloaded the latest version of the software, so it could be the full suite or Application Manager itself. So in this instance I've got the full suite. So if I go to where the folders are, go to Software, Products, you'll see we have a Templates folder. In here we have Deutsch or English, and then you see we've got a number of templates here to be used. So they're fairly self-explanatory for desktop or VDI, or for server, typically XenApp or RDS servers. And then we have passive ones as well. So particularly use the passive ones for audit only, if we just want to go and watch what the users are running. These ones that don't have passive are obviously active. So I'm going to select an active one for my desktop and go open. So that's now opened up the template, and what you'll notice now is if you click on the prohibited items list under everyone, we have a list of all these executables. Now these are all listed here because they will pass our trusted ownership checking, and I'll come on to that in a second. So we've listed all these manually for your benefit so you don't have to go do it yourself. But as you can see, they're all typically executables you won't want a user to run in the first place. Okay, so now we've imported our template, what we need to do is save it. So clicking on the red button again, save as, because it's a new configuration, saving it into my management center, select my management server I wish to connect with, authenticate, and then give a name to our package. So in this case I'll call it Application Manager Base, and now save it. So now I've saved my configuration. If we go back into our management server and into the packages available, what you will see is that my Application Manager Base configuration is now in here and available for me to assign to my endpoints if I wish. So the second point we're going to cover now is trusted ownership checking. So what I need to do is, just because I've saved that template, I need to reopen it again. So I'm going to reopen my template here from the management server. Okay, so trusted ownership checking. In a very basic way on how it works is we check the ownership of a file when it comes to execute through the kernel. If the owner of the file isn't listed within here, our trusted owners, we block it. The reason we do this is because if a file is put on the file system by a user, they will own the file with their user account. We don't want users introducing executables or code into the environment, so therefore when they go to run it, they won't be part of our trusted owners list and we will block them. So in my trusted owners list I have built-in administrators, computer name or local administrator, a system account and trusted installers. So I know in my environment that I also have my domain admin account which actually owns files. So what I'm going to do is go find my domain admin account. It's found in my AD and I'll add that in and away we go. You can find out which accounts own files within your environment by using the endpoint analysis, and it will go out and actively tell you who's installed the applications onto the build. So when we do that now, I'm going to go OK to my new trusted owner. I'm going to go to my endpoint analysis. Now I'm going to add an endpoint. I can browse from a deployment group or browse my domain. I'm going to browse my domain and put in the name of my machine. What I can do now is actually get it to run an endpoint scan or start an application usage scan, which will tell me what applications users are running at that particular time, or an endpoint scan will actually just go tell me what's been installed on the box. So I'm going to go run an endpoint scan on my machine. And off it goes. Now this can take some time. It does depend on the amount of applications that are installed on your box and the amount of files that the agent needs to go through to find out the information. Okay, so now that we've finished, let's drill down and look at the installed application list. So as you can see, it gives me all the executables that have been installed and also the owner of all those executables. So you can see we've got built-in administrators there as well, system account, trusted installer, administrator, trusted installer. Okay, so that means that my default trusted ownership list should suffice for this particular client. So let's go back to our list here, and here we go. So now what we're going to do is I've added in my new trusted ownership account. I'm now going to save and unlock my configuration. As you can see, the version number goes out by 1. Done. Okay, so it's time to now assign my new configuration. So let's just refresh. So here's my new configuration. And now let's assign this to the group and submit. Go to the computers and you can see that my Application Manager configuration is now a pending install. So let's just go through the steps we've just completed here. We've imported a configuration that we use as a base, and we've added our trusted ownership account in that we thought we might need to. And just to clarify, we've also done an endpoint analysis to make sure that we've captured all the trusted owner accounts we need to for this to work. Okay, so that's now installed. So what I can do now is log into my Windows 7 box as my test account. And there we go, we've now logged in. So we should have some rules in place that mean I can't go and run certain executables. So if I go and run Task Manager, which I know is something which is blocked, Application Manager will go and block that and say I cannot run it. Okay, but if I go and run one of my programs here, so here I've got Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word will run. You'll see it's actually being delivered by AppV. So Application Manager understands AppV delivered applications and allow them to run by default unless we explicitly block them. So WinWord runs correctly there. Now, if I go and try and create some content in Notepad, and save this onto my desktop, okay, so remembering how trusted ownership checking works, you can see that the ownership of my file is actually down to my user. Now, recalling that my user is not part of the trusted ownership list, when I run this, you can see it's actually blocked. So that's the power of trusted ownership checking. So, what if I now need to decide that my users can only run certain applications if they're part of certain groups? Not a problem. Let's go back into our Application Manager configuration, open it up from the Management server. Okay, so now remember I've got an everyone deny. Now I may want to allow this for a certain group of users or a certain user. So what I'm going to do is deny WinWord for everyone. So I'm going to come in, right click, add item, prohibited, and go file. And type in winword.exe. So now Word is now denied for everyone, apart from administrators, who are unrestricted. I'm now going to save out that configuration. Update it. If you don't wish to manually update this all the time, you can right click on the configuration and tell it to use latest version. Hit submit and then check and just wait for the configuration to be upgraded. And there we go. Okay, so now if I now go to run Word, we now see that without having to log off and log back in, WinWord has now been blocked for my user. So we've reopened our configuration. We've still got WinWord blocked. So now I'm going to actually allow it just for my user. I've added the user in here, and now all I need to do is make an accessible item, winword.exe. Done. I can also use other rules. I can use a device rule. A device rule will allow me to base this on whether it's a physical machine or a connecting device. I can use this for Microsoft licensing compliance for things like Visio and projects within the terminal server or a VDI environment. And it's as easy as creating the rule, giving it a name, ensuring that the application is blocked with everyone, which we have, by using WinWord as an example, typing in the name of the machine, computer A as an example, and then by selecting the connecting device radio button, we're telling Application Manager to look inside the ICA, the RDP, or the PC over IP information, rather than looking at the machine itself. We can then add in the executable which we want to allow based on that rule. Okay, so we've created a rule for my user, made accessible for WinWord. Let's save that out again. Again, wait for that to deploy. Okay, and we're installed. So let's go back to our Windows 7 image, run Word, and this time Word is allowed to run. Okay, so now we're going to go through the Rules Analyzer. The Rules Analyzer is a tool within Application Manager that allows you to show why files are being allowed or why files are being prohibited within your configuration. So what I'm going to do is just close down Word, and I'm just going to recreate quickly the script we had previously, and this will show trusted ownership checking working within the analyzer. So if we just save this out again, okay. Okay, so there we go. So let's go into the Application Manager console. So here we've got the Rules Analyzer down the bottom left. And you can see I have a number of what we call endpoints. You can add endpoints just by right-clicking and adding directly from your deployment groups in your management center, or you can add them from your domain. So here I've got my machine already enabled, and you can see that if I right-click, I can start logging. So this is going to start logging on my machine. So let's go back to the Windows 7 client, and let's just run a couple of things to trigger off some events. So if I run my script, it will be blocked because of trusted ownership checking. If I run Task Manager, it will be blocked because it's explicitly denied, even though it's a trusted executable. And if we run Word, Word will be allowed to run. So we should be able to see these things within the Rules Analyzer log, and we can make decisions on that. Okay, so let's go back to the Rules Analyzer, and we can stop logging. Now ask us to put it into a file name, so let's call this Application Manager. Go OK, and it will now upload it from the client into the console here. So I can now click on my Application Manager file, and you can see there's a number of denied, there's a number of allowed, and we can base it on a whole heap of users. So if we look at denied, there'll be a number of denieds there, but you can see there's my script. Okay, default rules, and in this case, because my script is actually running from a redirected desktop, it's a remote file, which Application Manager blocks by default. Okay, so then we know that I may need to put an explicit rule in to allow the /kvlab dc01, allow things to run from that area if I wish to. So let's go back, and we may see Task Manager. So Task Manager is in there. So by default, it's an allow, and that's because of trusted ownership checking. Okay, but then we've got an explicit rule, which is a prohibited file. So what this is actually showing you is the decision flow Application Manager makes before it allows or denies a file. Now if we go back again, we'll actually go back to the allowed. What we should see is hopefully somewhere in here WinWord. So if we scroll through, so you will notice some other files in there. We keep looking down. Scroll down a bit quickly. Hopefully it should be one of the last ones in the log. And there we go, there's WinWord. So you can see it's actually coming from the Q drive, which is the AppV drive, and it's a default rule we allow. So built into Application Manager is the default functionality that we allow anything from the SFT Vault for AppV. Okay, So that's how we use Rules Analyzer. Again, the results from here can then be used to modify your configuration to allow or deny specific things. Okay, so in summary, what have we learned today with Application Manager and some of the basics of it? Well, firstly, we've learned about importing a template. It's a very important start of the process of securing an endpoint. It provides a good base and it takes away a lot of the legwork for you to go and name everything that is potentially trusted you don't want the users to run. Trusted ownership checking. So I think we've shown that it's the easiest way of securing an endpoint. There's no whitelisting or blacklisting. We're purely naming which accounts or which groups are allowed to install or modify the build. And obviously that means it becomes a very powerful security tool because we're only allowing those executables that have been put on the machine in the correct way. And lastly, using the rules. So once we've set up our trusted ownership checking, using the rule set to be granular and deciding which users, which groups, which devices are allowed to run what applications which are already trusted. Remembering that the least restrictive rule applies. Okay, so if I have something blocked but then something allowed, then the allowed rule will always win, unless trusted ownership checking overrules that. And lastly, Rules Analyzer is your friend. It's a great tool to allow you to work out if something needs tweaking or if something is wrong within your configuration and being able to make that change. So I hope you found this session about Application Manager informative. If you need any more technical documentation, please just go to the www.myappsense.com, register, and you can grab yourself a copy of Application Manager and begin testing. Thanks very much.